Thank you for joining us. You're listening to the Write Project podcast and radio program. This is a show about writing and modern Newfoundland author culture. This program is produced and recorded at CHMR FM 93.5 FM in St. John's, Newfoundland and Labrador, and is aired on other great stations in the province and elsewhere in the country. It can also be heard online at www.chmr.ca. I'm your host, Matthew LeDrew, author of the Xander Drew series and founder at Engine Books. Let's see what we have today.
Okay, well, we're joined by Colleen Helme from Utah. She is the writer of the Shelby Nichols Adventures series, which started with Carrots way back in 2011. Wow,
There
it
you go.
started way back in 2011. And to my knowledge, currently has 14 sequels. So it's quite the long-running series. Including Fast Money, Lie or Die, Secrets That Kill, all the way down to what I think is your newest release, Dying Wishes. Do I have that correct?
That's right. That's correct. You ever been to Utah?
I have not. I've only been to the States once.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and that was on a trip with my family to Las Vegas with my dad.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I live, it's a suburb of Salt Lake City, next to the Wasatch Mountain Range. So the canyons are like 10 minutes away from me. And I've probably hiked every trail there is up Mill Creek Canyon more than once. But I love that canyon, and I love Snowbird and Alta and Brighton. Those two canyons are beautiful. So I love the outdoors. Love to go up there. I'm not a skier though. Never.
Oh.
I know. Crazy, huh?
No, not crazy at all. Not crazy at all. Awesome. I've read a few of these. I'm not gonna blow smoke and say that I've read them all. I've read the first three, and the rest are on my to-read list, for lack of a better word. But you know how life goes. But
I
I
do.
loved those three. I have like a bajillion questions about Carrots. But first of all, and it's on the wall behind you, and that's absolutely lovely.
Yeah, I thought I put that up to help you concentrate on
the books. Yeah,
on the
absolutely.
Books.
First of all, though, before I get into my nerd talk about your stuff, because I'm actually a fan, can you tell me about the newest book, Dying Wishes, and what it's about and what Shelby's getting up to this time?
You bet. Dying Wishes was really a fun book to write, and as with all of my books, I get kind of a muse from the title. So Dying Wishes, I have several plots going on, but they all involve wishes of people who are dying or who have died, and it so that it all kind of comes together. And that's something I can't seem to write a book unless I have the title.
Okay.
And then I know what that book is about.
Okay. It's almost like a fine theme.
Yeah. So Dying Wishes, in this book, it's more of a character. There's a lot of character-driven things in this book with her and the mob boss that she works for and the people around her. But the one fun thing is a new character, and she adopts a dog in this book. And so the question is, can she understand what the dog is thinking? Because she can read minds.
Yes, she can. Yeah. That's the premise of the series, is that it's
That's right. So can
an
she
investigator that
understand?
works for the mob, and she can read minds.
That's right. So can she understand this dog?
I don't know. I would think that she would have realized by now if she could understand dogs, couldn't she? Has she not encountered a dog before?
She has not been around dogs much. I did write a novel, a novel that is out. It's called A Midsummer Night's Murder.
I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah, and she actually does meet a dog in that book, and she does find out that she can understand some of what, it's like one word things.
Interesting. So just like basically what they're wanting right now, kind of thing. Like, ooh,
Yeah,
food.
like the dog barks and it means yep, yep.
Gotcha. Gotcha. That makes sense. That makes sense. Yeah, yeah. It's you wouldn't expect to hear an animal's thoughts and have it be like perfectly eloquent, like the Queen's English or something like
No.
that. No, that would, I mean, it'd be interesting, but like
But dogs don't think like that. They don't. And we've got to be somewhat realistic here.
cats do. Cats definitely do think like that. But yeah, you're right.
Yes,
Dogs don't. Yeah.
that's right.
Okay. That's cool. All right, that's awesome, and I think everyone should check out the entire series, but definitely Dying Wish and the new stuff there. Not that you need it, because these books just have a boat ton of reviews on Amazon. They're all 5 star or near 5 star, like 4.8, 4.8, 4. All 4.8, 4.7. Wow, finally one that's different. But like that's not off of like one review. Like your first book has over 2,000, almost 2,200 reviews, and every other one is up there around 400 reviews when I'm going on here. And that's a pretty well consensus. Like once you get around 100 reviews and they're all and it's still trending mostly positive, that's consensus at that point that these are good books, as much as anything can be. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I
Um,
love it.
I would say I have to ask about the series in general and the first book in specific, because every other book in the series has what I'm gonna call like a thriller-ish name, like a name that you would see on a traditional thriller, like a James Patterson or a Janet Ivanovich or something like that, like Dying Wishes, absolutely. Ghostly Serenade, Marked for Murder, Deadly Escape. All these things are like, yes, all that's great. And then the first one is called Carrots, and it's so different from all of the others. And I remember reading it and thinking, and you can tell me if I'm wrong and kind of tell me how it really came about or something like that. But in my head, this like the start of Carrots was a short story. And when I'm reading, because it seems like it has a like a spot where it could have ended, and
Yes.
then you branched off and said, no, I'm going to write a series about or a whole novel about this person, and just always kept the name of the original short story.
Yeah.
Even,
I
is that
think
right?
you've got that right. I think you've got that right. And after I got through with that book, I labeled it Carrots to begin with because I didn't know what else to call it. And it just stuck in my head so much that I thought, oh, I'm just going to go with that. Nobody's going to know what this book is about, but maybe they'll want to know.
That's what drew me to it, and I'm glad that other people pick it up and get it and still continue to pick it up to this day, because like I'm a weirdo who's read way too many books. So when I was going through and I saw this thing with a like traditional like thriller
Mystery.
cover, like the cover, you know what I mean? The one that's
Yes.
behind you there. But then she's holding carrots and it says carrots. And I'm like, all right, I'll try this. Let's see. Let's roll the dice. And it was really good. I'm glad other
At
people are
least it's
fine.
not Attack of the Killer Carrots.
That could be fun. That could be fun. Have you
Yes.
ever considered I don't like the name of my first book anymore. I found that yours didn't turn me off at all, but I find that I wasn't thinking ahead and it turns some people off because there's a connotation to it that I didn't really think about. Are you
Uh-huh.
ever tempted to go back and like change the name, or are you just like, no, that's what it is. Go away.
Well, thinking about it, I have thought, well, what else would I have called this book? And I couldn't think of anything else to call it. I mean, I guess I could come up with a few things, but at this point, it's been going for so long that, and I have had a lot of people have said that's what drew me to it was that strange title and the cover, of course. You're wondering what the heck is this about?
it's so interesting because all the covers now, because there were other covers before that were more like the cozy mystery style look to them.
Right.
But these are the covers that I'm familiar with, which again are very action oriented and look really cool, look like movie posters. And they're all Shelby from behind, and then the title is across her legs, basically. Um, and it's an awesome look, but all the rest of them they look like they're supposed to based on the cover, like based on the title, and that but then that first one, she's holding the
Yeah.
carrots next to her. It's so close. It's almost like I remember the first time I looked and I was like, is this a parody of the rest kind of thing? But it's not. It's wonderful. It made me interested enough to pick it out, which is what it's supposed to do.
Yes.
Yeah, no, it's brilliant. You couldn't do it if you tried again. You know what I mean?
That's true.
Yeah, it's like,
It was one of those circumstances. It just kind of happened, I guess.
yeah. Can you talk at all about because I mean I could pick apart each individual book, but I'd rather have people listening who, like, my local readers might not have heard of you by now, even though I talk about you constantly. So perhaps they have, but in case they haven't, I don't want to spoil very much. We've already talked about the plot and the general idea of the book a little bit. I'd rather them just go read it,
Uh-huh.
because they're all, on Amazon and on ebook and
Right.
audiobook and all that kind of thing. Um, I wanted to ask about the influences in general. Like, what
Oh,
did you read as opposed when you were
right.
starting out? What books did you like to read back when you were just a reader, kind of thing?
Well, it's really interesting. I love fantasy novels. I grew up on fantasy novels. I love fantasy novels because they have magic, and I always wanted to have magic. That was something that I aspired to be able to walk through doors and stuff like that. But it's never going to work. But in a book, it works really well, and there's so many cool things you can do. So I wrote three fantasy novels to start with, and those were published by a small press publisher. But I got the rights back, and I started writing carrots because I went to the grocery store one day, and the store had been robbed about a week before.
Okay.
And one of the cashiers, I was a friend of mine, and I was talking to her, and I thought, wow, what would I have done if I would have been here when this happened? And there was a guy with a gun and the whole bit, and so I just couldn't get that out of my mind. And I thought, I'm going to start a little story about this woman who goes to the grocery store for carrots because she doesn't have enough. She didn't have any for her soup, and I never intended for. I mean, that was just the beginning, and as I wrote is how it happened. So I did not have a plan in my mind that she would be able to read minds. It was
Okay.
just once she got shot in the head and came to, and it was like she could hear people's thoughts. I thought, this is cool. I want to write about her.
Yeah, that sounds fun. Yeah. That's interesting. And I love in that first book how it kind of plays on insecurities. Like
Oh, totally.
yeah, it's you always think you know what other people are thinking, and worry about what other people are thinking. She actually gets to hear it.
Yeah.
Um, I find it interesting too the way that your book, but just media in general, portrays like hearing thoughts, because like how else would you do it? But like thoughts are kind of portrayed as being very linear, you know what I mean? As though like
Yes.
people are thinking the way that you write in books, when some thoughts are like that, but
But
some,
some are just intuition, they're kind of feelings.
yeah, you
Yeah. And
tell
I think,
yourself after that it was all
right,
streamlined. But sorry, what were you
right.
gonna say?
And I think she has to deal with a lot of that. A lot of what she picks up are just feelings of anger, or, and so she picks all of that up. But for as far as writing that way, I I love writing that way because it gives you, the reader, the perspective of all the other people around her without me jumping from her perspective.
That's true. You can cheat and have multiple
Yes,
perspectives while still just keeping it anchored in her perspective.
that's right.
That is cool.
So in a way, I am letting everyone know what the mob boss is thinking and what he, is saying in his mind without ever having to leave her point of view.
That's interesting.
So
That's
it's
cool.
a real good device for me to let everybody know, without having to go into the facial expressions. And, I still do that, but we also know what he's thinking because she tells us, she hears it. And that's
Gotcha. Gotcha. In your opinion, what are common traps for aspiring writers? What are things that some writers do and they get themselves caught up in things?
I think something that I do, at least, I don't know about other writers, but for me, I always have to remember that I am showing what is happening rather than telling. And a few words that are keywords that really help are if you use the word was or when. Both of those words kind of indicate that you need to change the sentence a little bit because you're not showing, you're telling. So when you say, when she walked in the door, that's easy. You say, she walked in the door.
Gotcha. Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
And like the sky, well, and so a lot of times you do have to use was, but there are times when you can completely take it out and it can actually make that sentence more dynamic and fresh, and you're showing the work a lot better.
I have to check my own work on that because I'm very familiar with like show don't tell, but I've never heard the was when thing before. That's
Yeah, I
interesting.
think that's something that I have noticed a lot in my own work, and I'll see a was and I think, okay, there's a better way I can write that sentence.
Okay. All right.
Without the was, and see, sometimes you can't if you're kind of doing a between scenes or something, but when you're right in the middle of the action, you don't want those in there.
Okay. That's cool. That's a new one for me. I like that. What is the best money you ever spent as a writer?
There's been so much money I've spent. For sure, getting a really good computer that doesn't crash on me and that doesn't lose my work, and I have a backup system because that has happened where I've lost everything I wrote one day, and I think that happens a lot. And so that has been a really important thing. And then I have to say, advertising dollars, being able to come up with advertising dollars makes a huge difference in getting the word out. So that's an important thing, but you do have to get to a point where you can do that.
That's fair.
And it's only been recently for me that I've had enough money to just pour, quite a bit of it back into advertising. But I did hire a marketing company because I don't know anything about Amazon ads. I've tried to learn. I'm just not that kind of person where I know a lot of authors, they really get into the keywords and, they love that. And
I don't love it, but I try my best. But the
yes.
second I've got the money to pay someone else to do it, it'll probably happen.
Yes, that's a key, I think, for if you're a serious author, and it helps to have a big backlist.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, which you do. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's good.
Yeah. What did you do with the first money that you made from writing?
Oh my goodness. I'm sure I spent it on shoes.
Okay. That's good. That's a good answer. At least it's not bills. I'm always sad when people say just bills.
No, shoes. I think I have a few boxes of shoes somewhere. I can't get rid of them, but I always like more.
Okay. All right. If you could tell your younger writing self any one thing yourself as a young writer, what would it be?
Oh, it would be believe in yourself and don't give up. because I think as writers, we have so many self-doubts. We're always wondering if it's good enough, and it takes a lot to get your work out there and put it out there for people to tear down and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
But I would just say, you've got some good ideas, and no one else is gonna say that the way you are. Even if they have the same kind of ideas, you're the only one that can say it the way you say it. So go for it.
That's true. That's good advice. I like that. In your opinion, what's the most unethical practice in the publishing industry right now, if you know of any?
Pirating to me is pretty bad, and I get Google alerts, gosh, at least 2 or 3 times a week, where my books are somewhere, and I always have to go and ask them to remove them. But I think that's a horrible thing that people do. And of course, you want a free read if you can get one, and I think that's kind of hard in our business, because everybody says, "Oh, give your first book away."
Yeah.
And then, you'll get readers, and that works to a certain extent. And I don't want to say that's a bad thing, but
it's true. But you're and I understand, and it's correct in some ways. And there you'll always get some. Like, again, I got your first book for free on BookBub, and then
yes,
I got the next two at least, and the rest are on my to be read list, kind of thing. But
yes.
at the same time, you're like, some of the readers that I get from things like that, from free books, I think I'm getting readers who only read free books. You know
That's
what I
right.
mean? Like, yeah.
It's so true. And that's all they want to read. And so you think, well, they're not a good judge of my story.
Yeah.
I don't even like this sort of story, but it was free.
Yeah. Yeah. What was an early experience you had where you learned that language has power?
One day, our whole class was asked to write a little message to our mothers on Mother's Day. And so I wrote this message, and out of all the class, they picked out my little quote, and they read it to the whole school and said that. And I thought, wow, I must have said that really good. And it did make an impact on me that, words are important, and how you say them, and everything. They do have consequences. And
Absolutely.
I think I was about 10 or 11 when that happened. So,
Oh, wow, cool. What are important magazines for writers to subscribe to? That's a bit of an archaic question to me. So I also include newsletters. So if there are newsletters or blogs or anything like that that you think is important for writers to subscribe to, that.
I am subscribed to several of them. I don't always have time to read them. One thing that I have learned recently, there's a course called Strength for Writers. Strengths for Writers. I don't know if you've heard of that course, but
Yes, I
it
think
talks
so.
about
Yeah.
the Clifton strengths. And wow, that had a huge, and I just took the course last April. I mean, I've written a lot of books, but this has helped me so much in knowing my process and my strengths. So that's kind of an interesting thing to look at, because we're always being told, do an outline, do it this way, instead of write how you write best.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if we can find out what our strengths are, and not worry about writing how someone else writes, because we can't write the way they write most of the time. But that's not me, and that's not how I write, and I want to write to my strengths. And so that was a really good course, I thought, and I would suggest it for any aspiring author to check into what your strengths are and learn about your strengths.
Colleen Helme, do you think it's better to write a standalone novel or a novel that's a part of a longer series?
That's a great question. I started out with Carrots, and I did not know it would become a series. I just wanted to write the book. And once I did, I thought, well, do I have anything else about her I can tell? And sure, let's keep going. And I really think series right now are the way to go. But I know there are some stories that do need to just stand by themselves. It depends on what you want to accomplish in your writing career. Because a series, if you write a really good first novel and you can get the readers to continue, they'll want to read the rest of your books.
That's true.
So I would say go with a series unless you can't for that character, unless they die or something at the end.
Yeah. Does writing energize you or does it exhaust you, the process itself?
I think it's both for some reason. I do a lot of thinking in my head before I can write. I think about the story and I have to have things figured out before I can sit down to write. And then once I can start writing, I can lose myself in that scene and just keep going. A lot of times things happen that are surprising, but sometimes it just depends. Some days are harder than others, especially if you haven't really, as far as I'm concerned, haven't really thought it through. At least you've got to know what your next scene is so that you can sit down and write. Otherwise, you're just going to sit there and look at your screen and go, now what?
Colleen Helme, what is a word that you cannot spell? If this word shows up in one of your books, spell check, spelled that word.
Anonymous.
That'll do it. That is, yeah, for sure.
I don't even know how to say it that well, especially if they say anonymously, or I don't know. It's kind of a hard word for me.
Gotcha. No, that makes perfect sense. That one, I'm not sure I'd be able to do that one on the spot either, honestly. Colleen Helme, what is the first book you ever remember reading that made you cry?
Oh, that made me cry. I think I had a teacher that read Where the Red Fern Grows to us, and we all cried at the end of that book.
Yep. I'm so happy you said that. So many writers say that I'm preparing an episode where every author answers this question that way.
That's great.
Been very traumatic. I'm up to like 20 authors now who are all like, the red fern grows was friggin' awful.
It was so sad.
It's very sad. Yeah. I've yet to read it. I'm gonna have to read it for that episode and see what happens.
And then you can cry and you'll understand what we were talking about.
I feel like it was taught in school, and my school just didn't teach it. You know what I mean? But it seems like it's universal because I mean you're in Utah and encountered it, and then most of the people I encounter are in Newfoundland and Nova Scotia, and there. So it seems like just. Did Penguin just send this book out to every school in the province and go, here, get tissues ready? Or province, I mean, the nation or whatever. Continent is the word. All right. I'm so happy now. I got another red fern answer to it.
Yep, you did.
Yep. Do you think someone can write if they have a big ego? Do you think a big ego helps authors, or do you think it's harmful to the process of being an author?
Oh, a big ego. I would not think that would be a good thing because as an author, you have to be able to take criticism, and not necessarily criticism, but critique of your work. And people are going to say, you need to change this or write this part better or try this part again. If you have a big ego, you're going to say, oh, I know, it's great just the way it is. It's good. I mean, you'll never get far if you think you know it all.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Well, I believe that's a good answer, actually. I like that. Well, thank you very much for joining us on the Write Project podcast, Colleen Helme. It's a pleasure to have you on here.
Thank you for asking me. I've enjoyed being here. Thank you.
Wonderful, wonderful.
All right, well, thanks for coming on again. For all of you, we'll be here again next week at 4:30 Newfoundland time or online at chmr.ca. Please tune in and we'll talk more about writing culture in Newfoundland.